Hey, thanks for joining me. We're going to look at Youngblood Yearbook. But before we get to that, like to just remind people, I've got my own fan comics available. I've done a Masters of the Universe 6 graphic novel size fan comic. It's something that I've worked on for years and I'm pretty proud of. It goes into some crazy places, involves certain other 80s cartoon properties, and it's a story I've had in my head for years, and I made all 6 volumes. These are the first 3 there, and volumes 4, 5, and 6 here. All big, giant graphic novels. Kind of a Conan the Barbarian take on it, kind of adult. There's sexuality, there's violence, but I tried to write it with as much heart and make it as good as I could possibly make it. So in addition to that, I still have copies of a sketchbook that I put together. It's full of female figure drawings of just various things I've done over the years. Just sketches and ink drawings and all kinds of just different stuff that I put together into one sketchbook. I also have copies available of... Whoops, bumping the camera. I got this Ghost Agents book that I got to be part of. They let me draw a 6-page story inside this, and it's something that is one of my favorite things because it's on newsprint. Here's my story here, but all the stories and all the art in this book from everybody printed on newsprint. There's all kinds of crazy talent going on in this thing. It's really interesting. It's really fun. I can't recommend it enough. Really interesting stuff. Look up Ghost Agents. They're doing some cool stuff. And this book has got all kinds of interesting stuff in it. So if you're interested, hit me up. Find me on Facebook. Find me on Instagram. And we'll get you going with some copies of the books. Youngblood Yearbook. I've had this thing forever, and I keep passing it by because I'm like, who cares? It's a giant book. It's pretty substantial. There's a lot of pages in this thing. And it's from 93 with Chap Yeap on pencils. And so I kind of was dismissive of it because early Chap was not my favorite. He's a guy that I didn't care for at the time. And I kind of didn't pay attention to. I do have to say, having watched his work and done reviews of books that he's drawn on the channel, the man got really good. He learned and excelled and picked up a lot of skill and talent as he went, and he did it pretty quickly. And Liefeld gave him a lot of work. Like, he put him in charge in terms of art duties on Team Youngblood. Like, you had Youngblood and then Team Youngblood. That's like X-Men and Uncanny X-Men, right? In a way, it's for sort of an analogy. Liefeld believed in Chap, and he should have. He saw talent. And now I look at some of this earlier art here, and I'm like, it's pretty rough. Like, it's kind of fine, but it's not great. But Liefeld saw something, and Chap really went to bat for him and grew and learned and became a pretty substantially talented guy in terms of his Image Comics work. And he did a lot of neat stuff. And I feel like I got more respect for the guy having noticed how, I hate to say how bad he was, but I mean, it's kind of the truth, but then how good he got. And there's something interesting in this book is like these early pages are kind of terrible, but when you get into the back of it, you could see him growing and getting better at his figure drawing and just kind of getting better just in the course of drawing this book. Now, it's a lot of pages, so if you're drawing and you're paying attention and you're really working at it, you're going to get better. And it shows. There is a couple of things that he does that I know a lot of early artists did. I myself have done, and it's kind of like embarrassing to be like, I used to do the same kind of stuff. But you don't know what you don't know. We'll get into it as we go in there. But we start out with the team, the away team, landing a jet in the Antarctic, and out comes the crew. Sentinel, Riptide, Cougar, Brahma, and Photon. In terms of like a splash page of the team getting out of the jet, it definitely to me feels like this is a guy who's young and doesn't have the pencil mileage under him yet, but trying to do the best version of what is kind of expected and what he wants to do. Is like they're just kind of flexing in ridiculous poses that don't matter. Like, why is Brahma doing that? there's no reason, but it kind of tries to make them look cool. It kind of looks silly. It's not the greatest drawing, but things get significantly better as we go. So much I was getting towards the end of the book, and I was flipping back and forth from pages at the end and then pages at the beginning, going, this almost doesn't even feel like the same artist. It's pretty wild. But the team shows up. They're searching out something. I think there is a structure that maybe there's like an emergency call put out, and the people who ran this building, this observatory or whatever the hell it is, they disappeared. So Youngblood's investigating. Here's Chap doing some dynamic kind of page layout with putting Photon up in the air as he flies to kind of be like a panel border thing. It's kind of interesting, you know. It shows kind of a, you know, he's thinking. They're flying around. There's so much text. There's so many words all over this book. There's places where I'm like, this is very unnecessary. We're not writing Uncanny X-Men, guys. You're not John Byrne and you're not Chris Claremont. And none of this shit even remotely feels as deep and insightful and respectful and advanced as that in the slightest. So I guess to their credit, they're trying. This is Liefeld on plot, but Eric Stevenson on story. So, you know, he's got to validate himself by covering with words, I guess. They look inside the structure and it's kind of blown up and sort of, I mean, it doesn't exactly look destroyed. There's like a couple of panels on the ground and some wires popping out and computer panels and a few, you know, the panel blown out and some wires and some shattered glass. Like, it doesn't look devastated and destroyed. But they got to go searching around. This is weird because Cougar, it looks like Cougar sees some mysterious figure. Like, clearly there is something there. And he's looking right at it. He's like, huh? But he's not actually taking off after that. He just goes off running. Like, we got to scout the perimeter. Photon, fly. Cougar, run. Let's look around. So Cougar goes off running. So there's a couple things in terms of art that, God, it makes me want to do a separate video. I probably will, where I get out some paper and demonstrate some of these things that I used to, as a young teenager learning to draw comics myself, would replicate certain line works and line patterns that I did not understand how and why you're supposed to utilize them. And there's the same thing going on here. There's just a lot of nonsensical cross-hatching going on in the figure that doesn't, cross-hatching is supposed to be a version of giving shadow and a mid-range tone. You got solid whites, you got solid blacks, and cross-hatching is supposed to be a mid-tone to give your drawing some weight and depth and three-dimensionality. And so there's a lot of that kind of like going on, like Chap's doing it here, but it gets way worse, where it just feels like these younger artists are looking what Liefeld does, but they're also looking at what Jim Lee does and Silvestri and Larson and all the big guys at the time, the popular dudes of the 90s. And these young artists don't understand why and where and how you're supposed to employ these cross-hatching techniques. They just see that there are certain lines put in certain places on certain parts of the body, and so they just keep doing that. And then it just looks like you're just throwing lines down that don't make sense for the illustration. It doesn't work. But everyone has to learn. And this is not the worst example. We'll get into some examples where there's just like cross-hatching on the shoulders and then some of these lines down here on the forearm. I'm like, what are you trying to like demonstrate with these lines here? It doesn't quite work. Anyway, Cougar, run along, gets blasted in the nuts by something. And then there's just a kind of a terrible drawing of generic big muscle. They look like 80s wrestler kind of characters. Like big hair, chains, and all kinds of nonsense. I get what's supposed to be going on. These are big, intimidating, villainous bad guys. They got like flat top mohawks and pointy shoulder pads and shiny metal parts. And fucking, there's even a guy here with a mohawk, but the smoke of the gun is completely covering his face there, but then the smoke becomes translucent on this guy's face up there. So that's weird to have it covering there, and it just kind of doesn't work. I get what's going on. It doesn't work. This actually kind of sucks, but you get the idea. Big, giant, monstrous bad guys with guns. We got to fight them. Holy shit. Photon's charging. Brahma's charging. Sentinel's charging. Off we go. We're chasing. I guess the bad guys just fucking run off. It looks like they just take off into the distance. And so Sentinel punches one of them. I guess that's Brahma beating the shit out of all of them. So they show up, they look tough, and they run off and they get punched. Nope, okay. Meanwhile, Cougar's just tucking down, trying to figure out what the hell's going on. And then, like, Cougar, look out. He turns and looks, and a couple of big naked men, giant muscles, clearly undressed, with cybernetic eyes and little silver bracelets. Cougar's getting attacked by a bunch of big naked men. I guess Chap figured he could do a thing where there's three of them and he could just do a reverse silhouette and have the guy kind of put a color hold on it and that would work. No, it does not. That is, come on. If this is the introduction to these specific characters, let's draw the fuckers. Like, but anyway. All right, Cougar's going to fight a bunch of big naked men. Hell yeah. So now we get giant double page spread of Cougar beating the shit out of one of the naked guys. I guess he's got a diaper on. That's good. This is, it's, you know, visually, you can't help it. It almost doesn't matter how good or bad an artist is. It's better if you're good, of course, obviously. But if you're not a great artist, but if you just do a giant double page spread of these guys fighting, you almost can't help but kind of sort of be microscopically successful anyway, just for the sheer size of it. Kind of works. But getting into the art again, into the line work of shit that people do that just kind of doesn't make any sense. These artists will kind of sort of understand that, like, you're going to take a round form here, like his shoulder or his triceps and his biceps, and then you kind of cut a line across the top of it, and then you cross-hatch it out to kind of give the indication of lighting from somewhere. And if you've ever drawn, like in art class, they show you how to draw a sphere, right? A circle, a round sphere object, and there's a light source hitting it. And so you're you're taught, you're instructed to understand shadow and lighting, where there's like the cutting across of the form. In fact, hey, wait a minute. I forgot I had this sitting right behind me. How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. I'm sitting here trying to explain this, and I'm like, there's, I think, a perfect example of kind of what I'm talking about. You know, trying to draw cylinders and get the understanding of the form, like a round circle shape. It's kind of like the beginning of understanding round muscular form. The power of perspective. But yeah, but you kind of get my point with the little round shapes. It kind of gives it a sense of three-dimensionality. And so we're kind of trying to replicate the shadow going on there. And what the artist is doing is kind of like this hard line right here is like the peak heavy shadow, and then everything else under it is darker than the highlighted white spot here, but it's not as dark as the hard line separating from the light source and the shadow side. This isn't the greatest example, but so you would cross hatch out those lines in an ink drawing to give the three-dimensional form. That's kind of the basic idea of what's going on here. All that to say is, I don't think these artists understood that. They just understood that at the top of a round figure, you just cut a line across it and you do little cross-hatching, little bubbly, noodly shapes up there. And you just cross-hatch lines out one way, and then you cross-hatch out lines on the other side, and then you just repeat everywhere. And when you're drawing as an artist, especially when you're young, and if you're smart, you understand that you don't know everything. But throwing down lines on a big drawing like this, it feels like you're doing something. It feels like you're achieving something. Like this is Cougar's leg. Oh, you know what? Fucking my ass. I always thought that Cougar was slicing the guy. I just now noticed that his leg is coming up. He's kicking the guy in the face. I just thought he sliced him. Whatever. But see how there's like just lines thrown everywhere down here, and then lines this way, and then you got, this is his leg bent. Look at this giant peak of this muscle here. You just put a heavy black shadow on it, and you just cross hatch out lines coming down, cross hatch out, just throwing lines everywhere. There's unnecessary weird cross hatching lines up here, across this form there, and especially across this back of the guy's back of his arm there, his forearm there. Look at the shoulder. Like, none of these lines make any sense, especially when you go in and render the shit out of the body hair. But then you do this cross-hatching thing where now there's no body hair. It just turns into this weird looking form that doesn't make sense. The coloring is really helping it. And the average person, the young teenage kid, 13 years old, reading this shit in 93 or whatever it was, probably wouldn't even notice. But I bet all the old school artists of the day look at this stuff and go, who the fuck is giving these kids pencils to draw comics? This is, I could just imagine them looking at this going, this is so fucking bad. But this was what kind of kids wanted. This is a very exciting new thing in the 90s. They all kind of dug it. And young kids don't care. They just see a bunch of lines thrown everywhere. It's at both times kind of exciting and just terrible. So I don't know. I hope that kind of makes sense. Chap definitely, as I said before, he got way better and understood this stuff. And in later issues, as the years go on, he got really good. But this stuff with the cross-hatching it out, kind of weird, doesn't make sense. Script tells you on page whatever, Riptide, big full shot of her looking sexy, pulling moisture out of the snow to flood everything, and then it can freeze because it's in the Antarctic and she can stop people. So her head's a little small, her hips are kind of thick, her legs are kind of long, but it's not the worst drawn female figure ever. He kind of has an understanding of the correct curves. He might have even referenced this from someone else's figure drawing. It's not bad. It's not great, but it's not bad. So Riptide's doing her best to help out. And then I guess this is kind of a terrible drawing of everyone, just like these light, poorly drawn shots of the team chasing all the naked muscle men down a tunnel. They're running through the Arctic, fucking running into a tunnel. Now, this is where all the text combined with the art is fucking up the understanding of what we're looking at. I'm like, what am I seeing? What is this dark shape here? And what is that dark shape there? I'm like, oh, okay. I think this is like the lower calf of a guy's leg, and this is like his ankle, and there's supposed to be a foot down here. And I'm guessing this is the other foot in like a running stride. So here's a foot up here. But Chap putting it in heavy silhouette right up front, and then so many fucking words covering everything, it kind of makes it hard to understand what you're looking at. And that's not good. Again, the average teenage kid at the time probably doesn't care. He's probably not even really reading. He's just like, oh, hot girl, she does cool shit. And then the heroes are running and flexing and looking awesome. So we look like we got Yeti's asshole that they're all charging down here, going down a tunnel. Into what? Into where? Who knows? They're traveling through a dark cave. So we get silhouette shot. Everyone's kind of looking around. What's going on? Photon goes blasting to kind of scout ahead. That's kind of not bad. There's kind of a dynamic flying pose there. The hands coming forward. I feel like there's kind of like a Jim Lee influence in there. Like I've seen that somewhere. But Photon, he found something. He comes back and points at the light in the distance. I don't know why Photon suddenly got the little creeper French mustache on his lips right there. He's like, oui, oui. We go down the tunnel this way, And what do they find? As they exit the tunnel, they're in the fucking Savage Land. I think this is a place called Arcadia, and I'm wondering if this is the same Savage Land bullshit that's shown up in like the recent issues of the current 2026 Youngblood that Liefeld's doing. But of course, in the Antarctic, there's a beautiful, lush green land just hidden somewhere. Do we have to rip off everything from the X-Men? Like, fucking please. And if they're coming out of a cave, this is the worst drawn cave I've ever seen. Like, make it look rocky. Like, out of all the time and effort spent on this double-page spread, like, fucking make it look like rock or something like that. I kind of feel like as a young man, however old Chap was, I just feel like he didn't know what to do. So he just kind of, maybe people won't notice. And then the way it kind of lines up with the head here, that's a weird kind of tangent thing. For the longest time, I thought that this was Sentinel because it kind of got the flat top and like the dark skin. That's Sentinel, right? No, Sentinel's right there. Who the fuck is that? I guess that's Brahma. and then Cougar, Riptide, Photon, and then big, almost naked, muscly men in the giant jungle. There's dinosaurs and birds flying in the sky and silhouette drawn multiple figures. And there's more of that cross hatching at the peak form of a round shape, just throwing lines down at every peak. You know, it's not as egregiously bad as it is in some other places, but it's just like not kind of understanding how to utilize the rendering technique that they're trying. He does it on every fucking pectoral muscle here, and the abs and the ribs and the biceps and the lower arms, everywhere. Like there's just that rendering all over the place. It just kind of doesn't make sense. But yeah, we're in the Savage End. Fuck it. No, Jesus Christ. We have to flip the book on the side. No reason for this. Doesn't help anything. It just pisses us off. So the team has to stand and flex, and fucking Sentinel just sticks his hands out to the side, cutting them off at the wrists. But he's like, hey, instead of kicking ass, everybody, there's like, they outnumber us like 10-1. So we're going to let ourselves get taken hostage so we can find out what's going on. And then as they get taken hostage and hands bound, shackled, the Youngblood team gets led away. There's a mysterious guy up in the jungle trees with a flashing eye, I guess, and wild hair. Is this fucking Khazar? Tarzan? Who the hell knows? But there's a mysterious guy here. And then we go to, it says, hours later, the travelers emerge to behold a jarring anachronism so vast in size as to dwarf even the pyramids of Egypt. This building here looks like a robotic cock. And these are like its testicles. So the giant dick building, it's kind of interesting outside of the robot dick looking building that it is. Here's the head of the guy who's following them. There's these little tiny specks down here to give a sense of scale. So yeah, I guess it's huge. They're led into a room, and then the team. Now suddenly, again, artistically, Chap's changing his work, and I feel like the motherfucker was inspired by some Jay Lee shit. Look at the faces on these guys. Look at Brahma there. Look at Sentinel. Look at Cougar. Look at Photon. I swear, and again, we were all being blown away by Jay Lee's work at the time. I feel like Chap was seeing some Jay Lee stuff, and he's like, I've got to incorporate some of that. And he did. And it's heavily shadowed. And what I like about it is that he's leaning into just letting there be heavier blacks all over the figures rather than trying to like do cross-hatching lines. Now, he's still got some cross-hatching that's unnecessary. It's always on the shoulders and on the pecs and on the triceps. Kind of unnecessary, but he's incorporating just more solid, dark shapes to define the figure. And it's trending towards like a better understanding of figure work, and it looks more interesting. They all look super roided out. I mean, it's a superhero comic, but I just feel the Jay Lee influence. And it's kind of a good thing. So, and there's more to come as we go. But yeah, the team is shackled with the stupidest fucking shackles. These are little round silver things that are just kind of like molded or melted together at the ends. It's kind of dumb. Of course, some off-screen super bad guy is flirting with the hot half-naked girl. He's like, oh, you're fucking fine as shit. It's a shame I have to execute your sexy ass. Who is it? Oh my God, it's Tyrax. What? This is a guy, the first time I ever saw him that I was aware of, that had stuck out in my mind, was in that terrible Berserkers series. He was a bad guy in there. And then just barely in the most recent new 2026 Youngblood that Liefeld's doing, this Tyrax guy showed up again. And in that book, he's sitting in a chair telling people how awesome he is. I guess that's his thing. That's what Tyrax does. He's sitting in a chair, holding a little cup, flexing with his little skull belt, talking about how awesome he is. And so he monologues about how I am this guy, and I am the eternal badass, and I have all this technology, and I'm going to take over the world. And I am so cool, and I'm awesome, and I'm giant, and I'm evil. And he never has ever done anything fucking like once that I've read or that I know in the Extreme Universe. But to be fair, I didn't collect a lot of this shit because it's all terrible. I kind of dig the like giant face and then the kind of almost full figure shot. It looks pretty impressive. I gotta say, compared to what Liefeld did in the current issue of Youngblood, this looks better than anything he did. They're doing the same thing. It's just a close up on the face, and the guy's sitting in a chair, and Chap's kicking his ass all over the place. Chap 30 years ago, better than Liefeld today. But while they're sitting there and the bad guy's monologuing about how he's awesome, he's going to take over the world, Riptide and Cougar, they look behind him, and giant, naked, muscly men show up. Look, they ain't wearing shit. This is the guy, I think, that was observing from the trees. It says Kanan, Kanan. I feel like there's some Jim Lee influence, but again, more heavy shadows. He's learning to trust the heavy shadows and kind of like the rim lighting going on these muscles here. And then the coloring helping with the outer edge lighting. Like Chap's looking at stuff and incorporating it into his own work, and it's kind of working. These figures are they're kind of silly, but kind of awesome. I don't know why he had his foot come down and then just kind of just melt into the ground, and then whatever the fuck that's supposed to be, and why there's a little rectangular bar here. You know, Chap's trying to do some designy shit. You know, weird rectangular shape there. Unnecessary, weird triangular, square, rectangular border in the background there with another border. Like all this weird panel-shaped border stuff that doesn't do anything. It just is confusing and weird. But these figures, I feel like there's some of that Jay Lee influence, but I feel there's some Jim Lee in these. The rendering on the muscles and stuff, the poses, I feel a Jim Lee influence going on here. But big naked men, this guy's fucking bent ass cock is hanging down in the shadows there. But they all come a running. So this is, now you could confuse these muscly guys with previous page of muscly guys. Like, is it these guys? Is it these guys? These are new guys. There's just big naked muscly guys just everywhere. But those are not terrible drawings. He's still incorporating all that cross-hatching all over the place in unnecessary places, but I feel like it's getting kind of refined. He's like starting to understand the forms better in a way that makes it make more sense. He's getting better page by page. The artist here does not feel like that artist there. To me, there's a drastic difference. And that's awesome. It's nice to see him kind of changing and growing. So, stupid Tyrax, he talks some big shit. We get a kind of a waste of a page with the side view of him, this head, which looks pretty good in his cape. But Tyrax talks some shit and pushes a button, and his chair slides away into a wall and vanishes. Chicken shits out. He's gone. Oh, fuck. Now we got to turn the book on the side again. So now Youngblood's like, hey, mysterious naked men, thanks for showing up and helping us. You're awesome. Thanks for doing that. He's like, yeah, I know. I've been fighting Tyrax my whole life. He fucking sucks. But there's more bad guys coming. We have to go kick more ass. We just don't get to kick Tyrax ass. Like, all right, hell yeah. We're Youngblood. We want to kick the shit out of people. So, and I flipped this up. I'm like, wait, who are they? What? I guess there's like silhouettes in the overhead of bad guys, because suddenly everyone has to fight a bunch of bad guys that just showed up. And I'm like, oh, wait, what's this? Flip it open once, flip it open twice. We got a 4-page spread. So I'm just kind of assuming that Liefeld kind of said, hey, when we get to here, you get to do this. And Chap, for the skill level that he had at the time, did pretty dang good, all things considering. Stupid Sentinel here, he's in nothing but spandex outfit. Like, he's wearing a full body armor with a big metallic neck collar and a belt and metal underwear. But now it's just like he's just got nothing but spandex on. Probably because Chap just wanted to draw a big, giant, roided out muscle figure. Anatomically, it's all over the place, but it's pretty exciting. And that face has got more kind of Jay Lee influence going on. This giant figure up here, it's kind of, there's no need to put these like weird lines going across it like this. I think I kind of get what he's trying to do. He should have done a zipatone, but I don't think it needs to be kind of the lines or the tones to kind of fade out the figure a little bit because he's right up front. He should be right in our face. The anatomy, I'm trying to track it. Like this bald guy, the back of his head looks like a baby's asshole. The muscles are kind of faked everywhere, but enough to kind of follow it. But it all kind of falls apart through here. But back muscles are hard. Nobody trains back muscles in their art when they start. And again, there's just more of that weird fucking cross-hatching, unnecessary shit going on. And then the bad guys in the background, just all being just generic silhouette shapes. This is a significantly challenging spread to do. And Chap did pretty good, like I said, all things considered. A better artist would not have characters in silhouette and had them kind of visible and surrounding everybody. It's pretty dynamic. It grabs your attention. Riptide, she's got a little tiny head and thick hips, and she's fucking gushing everywhere. She's splooging everywhere. Brahma's flexing, and I don't know what the fuck he's doing. And I guess this is the new guy, the Kanan guy. That is like unlike anything that Chap has drawn in this book so far. I don't know where he got the inspiration. Again, I feel like there's some Jay Lee and Jim Lee in that. But the inking's pretty exciting. The unnecessarily heavy lighting that doesn't make any sense, especially with the glowing eye, but it's like underlit. This is another example, and maybe the most egregious and worst version of like, here's his arm, this shoulder, and then his upper arm is like tricep muscles, and this like just heavy black line, and then just cross-hatching, just throwing lines like this on all these shapes. It makes it look like a weird plasticky thing. It doesn't look like an organic bare-armed muscle. This type of rendering should never be on this kind, like on a man's skin. This should just be rendered with like a lot of like body hair and heavy shadows. But this cross-hatching, this line and these cross-hatching lines going one way and then the other way, and then just single lines being thrown that way, it just kind of ruins everything. There's kind of a fun, nice, organic, awesome face going here, but this arm fucks it up. It stands out as like the most worst and egregious example of this rendering technique that the artist doesn't understand how to utilize in this place. It just looks awful. But that aside, the face is kind of cool. Brahma's kind of cool. This is kind of cool. The guy's trying. He's putting in significant effort, and he's getting better page by page. And then, of course, they're gearing up to put out Team Youngblood. So you got the Cougar shot. You got the ad for the guys, the creative team, Sentinel there. Anyway, back to the story. Photons blasting there. Cougar heavily shot. Again, reducing the bullshit cross-hatching and leaning into the heavy shadows. The shadows on Cougar's face, on his lower body, on throughout this arm, the shoulder. That all looks pretty badass. That's pretty damn good. Again, he's growing page by page, and it shows. I like that shot of Photon blasting, kind of the anatomy of the arm. It all looks pretty good. I guess Youngblood found the team that was lost. Remember, I almost fucking forgot. I'm like, there's some fat guys and some parkas behind them. I think they're supposed to be the humans that were lost in the facility at the very beginning on like page 2. Completely forgot about that bullshit. That's who they're there to save. It's like, hey, we found them. Everyone run. So they take off down the abominable snowman's anus and down the tunnel. And they're like, hey, Mr. Kanan, Kazar, Tarzan, whoever the fuck you are, you've sacrificed so much to help us. We promise we'll come back to help you. And he's like, that's a great offer, my friend, but it's impossible. So now go. And so, giant burst of energy. We're supposed to feel sadness because this poor, awesome this theoretically awesome brand new guy who saved our heroes, I guess, sort of, like he just showed up. All this guy did is he showed up naked. Bad guy takes off, and then we all stand around and talk, and we get a giant splash page of theoretical fighting. Like, this is just barely starting to fight. We don't actually get to see a fight. And then you get a page of photon shooting, and then fights over. Now we're running down a tunnel. And we're like, you've sacrificed so much. You did so much great things for us. We're going to help you. And he's like, you can't. I guess weird burst of energy. I don't understand what the fuck happened. Everyone's flying out carrying the humans that I forgot even existed. Out they go. And then fucking explosion. You can't look at that page and not tell me that there's a giant Jay Lee influence there. Like there's this chunky kind of random energetic explosion pattern, the ink splatter, the lightning. Like, how do you even pencil that and hand it off to an inker? I wonder if Chap inked this himself, because how do you explain that to an inker? But there is a definite Jay Lee influence in that. Not a fraction as good, but he's learning. But they escaped from the abominable snowman's asshole. It blows up, and they're like, holy shit, we're back out on the snow, and we're going to have to go back and help Kanan and his people. So we stand around and flex and pose and show how awesome we are. We're going to have to come back and help him, and maybe they eventually do in the forthcoming Team Youngblood book. The end. So it's kind of a cliche story, nothing that unique about it, but artistically it's all to kind of see what Chap can do, and the man got really good. Again, the artist at the beginning and versus the guy at the end here, it doesn't even feel like the same dude. Like, he really learned a lot as he went. Extreme, a 64-page quarterly featuring blah, blah, blah. Super Patriot, that's Dave Johnson art, right? There's the cover to this book. That's a pretty good shot of the team. Like, that's pretty awesome. I'm going to say that he probably drew this cover after he drew the book. I remember staring at this for a minute, trying to, like, find the fucking signature. And I'm like, is this a Jason Pearson or is this like a Cully Hemner? And I was about to like give up. I couldn't determine who the hell drew it. But then I finally, right down here, like that's Jason Pearson's signature, right? It's really obscure. And when you look at it like this, it's just kind of tucked away down here, hidden. You know, Jason Pearson's an incredible artist, but you should sign it so we can fucking see who it is. That's a pretty awesome shot. That looks like a good shot of the team. Then we get, this is Victor Bridges, it says signed there. I was never a fan of that guy's art. It wasn't for me. It says KM. I'm not sure who that is. I feel like I've seen this art. I feel like I should know who this is. Kind of the opposite of the art style that was kind of necessary to make these characters kind of interesting. It looks kind of bland and kind of soft, and they look kind of bored. It's fine. The Berserkers. This says Williams and Martin. Not sure who Williams is. It's kind of a fine drawing. Prophet looks bored as hell. It's not bad. It's pretty exciting. I do not like the coloring on that one. This was Dave Antoine Williams. I don't know if that's the same guy from the previous page. There's Shaft. While he's busy fucking shooting an arrow at who the fuck knows, there's literally a human being burning in the fire in the background. Shaft, you're supposed to be rescuing people, not letting the dude burn to death. This says C. Alexander and Ratman. I don't know who that artist is. That's kind of an okay Youngblood shot. Same Alexander guy and Ratman. That's kind of a... Alright, I don't like that one. That one's not that fun. Abel and Ratman. Don't know who that is. That's not a great shot of Youngblood. Maximum Sound. Sam Keith just passed recently. That super, super sucks. I do like that they threw in a ton of pinups of the characters. Just a bunch of fun art, whether you dig it that much or not. So it's a big book. You get a big story. You get a lot of like a quadruple page fold out. You get to see the team kicking ass. You get a bunch of pinups. So for a Youngblood yearbook that at the time, this thing cost $2.50. Man, any comic book that would be that cheap these days would be a steal. But that was pretty expensive at the time. But all in all, I was actually more impressed with it than I thought that I would be. Chap was growing and learning, and you could kind of see it. So just trying to give credit where credit's due to a young guy trying his best at the time. And if you can see growth through a single book. That says a lot about his dedication, and he's kind of a badass. I got to give him credit. So, Youngblood Yearbook. It says issue 1. I don't know if there's ever another one, but that's all I've got for this one for now. So thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it. I'll see you next time.